Hey man, how do you build a good route for a ride? You know, like a ramble-bamble ride? Like a good one? How do you do that?
You mean like gravel rides or adventure rides?
Yeah, one of those routes. How do you do that?
That's a good question.
Well, why don't you ask those OTMT, OM,
You mean the OMTM guys?
the Mountain Mother people? I'm sure they know how to do it.
No, that's a good idea. I'll hit up Ryan from OMTM. He's their route master.
Well, all right, you do that.
I'll be right back.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Hey, grab me a Bud Light with lime.
So how do you start?
So I use Ride with GPS. At the very basic level, if I want to map myself from A to some B, it's going to route you there.
So Ride with GPS will automatically figure out the best bike route?
It depends. Each map type is set in a different way. This particular map type knows what's designated for bicycles and what's designated for walking and horses. So it'll choose depending on which setting you have. For me, the way I ride, I generally choose walking because I can then go everywhere.
And that would be more advantageous for adventure or gravel riding.
For sure. If you have it on cycling, it will choose a more limited selection. If you don't know where you're going and you're mapping from A to B, it's often best to let it choose for you in the same way you'd use Google Maps. Often Google Maps is sufficient at the very basic level, but the Google Map layer is insufficient for backcountry. So
Good to know.
you want to use predominantly OpenStreetMap. It's an open source map that's on all of them. Strava is built with OpenStreetMap. Gaia has many OpenStreetMap layers. I myself contribute to OpenStreetMap, so I'm adding roads as I find them. You know, where you find the remnants of the old trail that's not on the map, and then I put it back into the map, and then people start to go there, and then it becomes a trail again because it starts to get circulation. And I've seen that happen now quite a lot, which is really cool. So you can bring stuff back into circulation just by adding it to OpenStreetMap.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's fun. But the way I approach it is like, if I was not me and I was someone else, what would I want this other me to offer to me? And that would be, show me where the trail is, because I would like to check it out.
Yeah.
So I just put it in there and I leave people's ethics up to themselves. Because trails, in order for them to survive, they need to be ridden and they need to be walked, they need to be used, otherwise they're gone quick. Then you can load your OpenStreetMap into your Garmin and then you have a match set of backcountry roads and your mapping. For example, Ride with GPS, up in this corner, it has your different types of maps that you can overlay. All of these different maps. Generally, when you start mapping stuff, you get really used to flipping through map types because each map type has a different idea of what reality is. Some of them have certain trails and some of them don't. So OpenStreetMap in general, at least in the Pacific Northwest, it's pretty good. It depends where you are. Sometimes something else is better.
Which apps do you use to build the OMTM route?
Pretty much predominantly Ride with GPS. It depends on the route itself and what the concept of the route is. Strava's heat map is quite complete. The nice thing about heat maps are that you can see where people have ridden. This is Portland. And this gives you a pretty clear picture. So this is all data that's been generated by people uploading their rides to Strava. The brightness of the line indicates how much amount of data is on that particular segment. It's always helpful to know if somebody has ridden something already. Gaia has some advantages over Ride with GPS in the research department because it has many more map types. In particular, I find quite interesting are some of the historical topographical maps. This one we're looking at here is from 1930.
Whoa.
Which is fun to see. We'll go back to where we are here. So we can look at what the map in 1930 looked like of where I live here. You can see there's many less streets. This is totally wild. There's no trails. And you can see that it was just totally wild in 1930. Go back to here and like everybody's ridden all over it, right? So sometimes this is useful if you're trying to find something that no longer exists, and this is the kind of stuff that I love because it used to be on the maps, but now it's not. So now it's a weird little goat trail in the forest, and that's the stuff we like. But it's still out there sometimes, or it's not. Google Earth also has a nice feature where you can go back in time with different years of captured satellite imagery. And that can become really helpful when you're specifically around here, we're riding logging roads so much. So you can go back to when they clear cut it. You're wondering if the road is there or not. So you can go back when they had cut it and you see the lines of the old roads. And then now it's grown in, they're out of there for 20 years. We can see how it compared to how it is now. The way I think about route making is essentially creating a piece of art. Like if you think of an Andy Goldsworthy line that goes through the forest, you know, it's a very organic line. And I think about routes in a similar way that anyone who creates any sort of time-based art, film, music, would relate to, in that you're creating a scene for somebody to journey through. And there's a certain amount of tension and reveal and flow and ebb, reward, suffering. You are in control of those factors, you know, and each person experiences it in a different way. In general, what I like is to think of the route as a composition. I mean, you want to find things that are beautiful and that are hidden, that people don't know about, and show them to them. And in the Northwest, it's not too hard to do. There's a lot of weird history and a lot of weird things to dig into. Bikes are sort of like instruments that we're using. They're not tools so much. They're something that you play. Well, at some point, you're going to have to go have a look. And this is the fun part of route making. So basically, what I generally do is construct up to 5 variations of things I want to look at. And these are not full routes. These are routes to things that I'm wondering about. So often connections are not clear whether they work or not when we're dealing with the kind of things we're looking at. I spend a lot of time with preparation ahead of time, and I can determine often if something exists or it doesn't exist just by using satellite imagery. So you plot a route to that point, and then you go out there and have a look, and sometimes you're surprised, sometimes you find gold, sometimes you find nothing. At the very minimum, you had a pretty cool bike ride, though, because you're generally going somewhere fun.
And unknown, so that sense of adventure is inherent in those rides.
Yeah, it's my favorite part of the whole process. You know, like when we finally invite people for a route, like I'm kind of over it by then. Right. I'm ready to do something else, but you know, I tag along just for fun, just to see other people discover it. When you finally get out to this place that I've been staring at the computer for literally a week, comparing the picture in your mind with the reality of the place, that's so entertaining to me. Like how accurate is my idea of this place, and then what is the reality of the place? And generally the reality is different yet similar. It's like you've been there in a dream already.
One of the things I think is so powerful about OMTM is you guys have this library of really good routes that are always accessible to anybody who wants at any given time. You don't hide the routes.
I'm a big fan of open source information. The idea of many people working towards something will be greater than the individual. It's a not-for-profit venture. It's a passion that I enjoy. And as long as it's not a burden on me, I don't see any reason why I should change that. I want to improve knowledge, not take away from it.
So that's basically how they do it.
Far out.
More or less.
Yeah. I never would have thought. I feel like a whole better person now that I know that tantalizing information. Thank you for that. Hey, you know what'd be cool? If we made an American flag out of a pallet, but we did it in camo instead of the true red, white, and blue.
How would you be able to see the flag?
Yeah.